Torrey Taylor, who they actually needed some help in terms of their punting unit. He is going to be great.
But I do firmly believe if Odunze's not on the board, that they probably trade back and gain assets and look to fortify their team across the board. But the fact that we got a bozo pick in number 8 here from the Atlanta Falcons, that's the reason why I believe also they picked out the Bears as the winner.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The Cam Rising stuff last year with Utah, 3 months of pretending he was questionable with a torn ACL, ridiculous.
It's a lot of gray right now when it comes to this stuff, and we really are. When people say we're in like the second or third inning of sports betting, that's why I agree, because there's so many of those situations that are very, very difficult to explain to a novice.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Game Time had 35 in the first half, Cam. And then, of course, he did not have another point the rest of the game.
Lillard's, it's playoff game time. This guy will show up. He will hit shots. Indiana, you better respond here, because I'll tell you, that's a bad loss. We were wrong, Carver. Like, hey, I was on the Pelicans. This game, I lost.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on
Hello and welcome to a Tuesday Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination and consume everything all across the grid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. We are here together for the next 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern Time. A doubleheader of round number 2 last night in the NBA playoffs, game number 2 in the Mile High City. And the Timberwolves are nothing to be trifled with in a controversial final minute inside Madison Square Garden in the opening game of the second round series between the Knicks and the Pacers. We had one game on the ice in the Stanley Cup postseason. Now in round number 2, a rematch of last year's opening round and a ton to get to around Major League Baseball as well. A jam-packed 3 hours, DRS, for us here on this Tuesday on the early line.
We're going to hit the full gamut today. NHL certainly very good. You saw last night, and we are going to talk about some questionable calls in the Garden last night. And I'm going to leave you with this, Ben. 35 points at home in a playoff game, not going to help you win too many playoff games, as we saw from the Denver Nuggets last night, and away we go.
35 points in that opening half. Denver was dismantled by the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that's where we begin. Even without Rudy Gobert, who missed game number 2 after the birth of his first child, Minnesota goes on the road to Denver for a second night in the past 3 days and wins outright as an underdog. A bigger dog in game number 2, even than the opening game of this set, closing as a 6.5-point dog. Minnesota dominates Denver, winning 106-80. A 26-point victory margin for the Timberwolves. They win outright as an underdog for their 4th consecutive game in the playoffs.
Absolutely impressive. I've talked about this many times. Defense does travel. Defense can win championships, and you know the Timberwolves are bringing the defense. But earlier in the day, Ben, as you pointed out, Rudy Gobert possibly not being available. Oh, my goodness, Denver's going to get back into the series. Who is going to defend Nikola Jokic? Who's going to defend at the rim? It didn't matter. They only gave up 80 points in that game. And Nikola Jokic to have 7 assists at the half and finish with 8 and cost me a triple-double at a plus 185 price here at the FanDuel Sportsbook was an extra crushing blow. But to be honest, I didn't see the start of this game, Ben. I rolled over in the third quarter. I'm like, hold on. This score cannot be correct here. This has to be a second quarter score, and it wasn't. That's how good on defense the Timberwolves were. 2-0 series lead against the reigning NBA champions.
Stifling, suffocating defense out of Minnesota. Denver scores 80 in the game, and when you look at the field goal numbers for the Nuggets at home last night, less than 35% from the floor overall, 30% from deep. And we continue to see the emerging superstar in Anthony Edwards. He pours in 27 points. Karl Anthony Towns adds in 27 of his own. They lead the way for Minnesota, who wins 2 on the road to take a 2-0 series lead, a commanding 2-0 series advantage back to the Twin Cities. Game number 1 of the second round series in the Eastern Conference inside Madison Square Garden between the Knicks and the Pacers. New York was down by 9 midway through the third quarter. They start to rally, and the entirety of the final 12 minutes, that fourth and final quarter, back and forth. But the final minute, very controversial. First, a kickball on Naismith for Indiana. It was ruled after the game in the 2-minute report the incorrect call, but it was not challengeable by Rick Carlisle. It leads to a Dante DiVincenzo go-ahead 3 that puts New York up 118-115 under 40 seconds remaining. And then a few offensive possessions later, as Indiana tries to get a shot up to tie, 12 seconds left, Miles Turner ruled for an illegal screen and offensive foul on our guy Tate, who, let's just say, could have been on Broadway with the act he put on last night. It allows the New York Knicks to ice the game away, 121-117. The victory for New York last night over Indiana. The Knicks do not cover as a 5.5-point home favorite, but they do win the first game of the second round series.
Yeah, this can't happen at this point. And I know that you can't just put in rules on the fly and say, well, we're going to review this even though we can't do that. In the NFL, do you remember with the pass interference, you can review and challenge that? And the NFL behind the scenes goes, this is only for disaster mode. So don't overturn any single play that you can possibly have on pass interference. But it's a shame.
Yeah.
Like in the biggest moment, Indiana probably should have won that game and lost. Why? And I know you can say, well, we'll take the easy out approach. We had 47 and a half minutes to prove them wrong. We can't let a couple bad calls. But no, it's part of the game here. That's like saying, well, we're just going to take the DiVincenzo 3-point shot off the board when he made it. No, you can't do that. The game's going to play out the way it is, and referee calls are included. It's just a shame that both major calls in the final minute went against the Pacers, where if those calls aren't made, the Pacers are probably up 1-0 in the series. It was the same thing that happened to the Philadelphia 76ers on the implosion in game number 2. These games are massive. Like, we'll get them tomorrow. No, you should be up 1-0 and you're down 0-1. That's a tough pill to swallow. I don't want to take anything away from the Knicks, because that starting 5 was electric last night, which included Brunson getting over 40 points once again. But it's a shame that we have to come on here and the first thing we talk about are the blown calls as opposed to the great play by the Knicks all throughout the night.
It's a great point, Donnie. Inside the world's most famous arena, the New York Knicks on to the second round for a second consecutive season, looking to get to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in more than 2 decades, since 2000. Jalen Brunson's masterful night, an 18-point fourth quarter, overshadowed by those interesting, controversial, and maybe incorrect calls down the stretch. Plenty more around the association in just a bit, but we go to the ice. Opening game in the second round series between the Panthers and the Bruins. Florida at home this year, the expected favored side, minus 164 in game number 1. The Bruins go to Sunrise and pick up a huge victory, led by a 3-goal third period. Boston walks into Florida and walks away with a 5-1 victory in game number 1.
Yeah, no score at the end of one, but the final 2 periods, the Bruins do tack on 5 goals. And how about Swayman? 38 saves last night, only gives up the 1 goal. He's been absolutely tremendous for Boston here. Now, all of a sudden, a playoff veteran after a great series going up against Toronto. He's continuing the good vibes here in game number 1 down there in Florida.
Of course, last year, the Bees, the President's Trophy winner, the best regular season in NHL history, had a 3-1 series lead against the measly 8 seed, the Florida Panthers, and the Panthers won 3 straight. Revenge on the mind of Boston. Now to Major League Baseball for the first time since June 2022. Walker Buehler back on the bump for the LA Dodgers. A little bit shaky, a little bit of rust. He did allow 3 earned runs in the first 2 innings, but the bats were there for LA. The 4th home run in 3 games for Shohei Ohtani, including his Major League Baseball best now, 11th long ball yesterday as the Dodgers rally for a 6-3 win over Miami.
Now up to 370 on the season. He's been amazing. Maybe a triple crown here in the NL, which would be wild for Ohtani, but it looks like he's already rounding into form. And how about this game? Total was listed at 8.5 before the game. We got 9 runs by the 3rd inning. Nobody scored from 4th through the 9th inning here. So it looks like it's like, hey, you know what? Barely got over that total when technically it was already closed out by the 3rd inning. But this is what the Dodgers do, picking up your pitchers. Why? Because you have really good batters. Look at the first couple guys in that lineup. Betts, 2 hits. Ohtani, 2 hits. Freeman only had the 1 hit, but also that 1 hit was a home run. That's a powerful lineup, 24-13 now in the season.
As we all know, a game 4 of a 4-game set over the weekend that extended into Monday in Philadelphia. The Phils like playing at the bank. 10 straight home wins for Philly, the first team in Major League Baseball to reach 25 wins. Another gem on the bump for Zach Wheeler as the Phils win 6-1.
Yeah, Bryce Harper again goes yard. The Phillies looking for 11 in a row at home today against Toronto. We'll see if they can do it. But playing great baseball, a couple of these teams here early on in the season, Ben.
Some NBA news, as was expected before the year. Victor Wembanyama wins the NBA Rookie of the Year award, a -145 favorite before the season. Chet Holmgren did flip to minus money at a certain point in mid-December, unanimously for Vic. And Pat Riley had a lot to say about the Miami Heat, including Jimmy Butler. Maybe we'll have some takeaways on that story about what is up next in South Beach, because Pat Riley did not mince words yesterday. But we go to Game 2 in Denver next.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path, but quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Things you probably did not expect to say, with the reigning NBA champs having home floor advantage in their second-round series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. That thing is that the Timberwolves win both games to start this series in Denver. Minnesota heads back to the Twin Cities with a 2-0 series lead. And not just a 2-0 series lead, but doing so in dominant fashion in game number 2. The Timberwolves win by 26. They led by 30-plus at certain points in game number 2, stifling and suffocating defense even without Rudy Gobert, as the Timberwolves take that 2-0 series lead with a 106-80. A 26-point victory margin in game number 2. Minnesota wins outright as a 6.5-point underdog.
This is one of the things where you take a look at the Minnesota Timberwolves and the evolution of what they think they're going to be as a playoff contender, Ben. We always talk about with OKC and some of these teams that haven't been there before, and that's why we're bringing up Minnesota right now. This was that first-round series where, again, they were disrespected. They were the home team, the higher seed against the Phoenix Suns, and still an underdog, and wiped them off the court in 4 games. So now we said, okay, that was Phoenix. Even though Phoenix has some world-class basketball players, it wasn't if you just put aside like a random team here. Phoenix was expected to do damage this season, weren't able to do anything because of how good the Timberwolves were. Then we saw game number 1, okay, caught Denver a little bit off guard, but now you're going to see Denver in game number 2 in what I always like to call a kitchen sink game. You can't go down 0-2 on your home court and expect to win a series. And then also that little ray of light in the afternoon, Rudy Gobert looks like he's going to be questionable, one of the best defensive players in the NBA. Now it's setting up for the Denver Nuggets to get back into the series. But you know what I love the most about last night? Not the overall defense. It's the way Minnesota played right out of the gate. You could have had one of those, hey, we got to ride it out in the first quarter. Hopefully we're within 7 or 8 points, and then we can get after them. They won the first quarter by 8 points, and then they destroyed the Denver Nuggets in period 2, 33-15. Outrageous, man. To be up at the half, already up 1-0, and saying, we're the better basketball team, and we're not going to let you up. I was so impressed by the Timberwolves last night because you didn't even get their A effort on offense, but you got an A++ effort on defense without your best defender. That's awesome for the T-Wolves.
A+++++. Keep going. Plus. Look at the plus minuses of Minnesota's starting lineup versus that of Denver. The Nuggets shoot less than 35% from the floor, only 30% from deep. We'll talk about Jamal Murray and his struggles in this series in just a moment. But the game that had a total close at 209 once again, when we were speaking about this game yesterday, DRS, 24 hours ago, early in the morning, total was 205 and a hook. It had dropped by 4 points from the closing number of that opening game. It was on the rise all Monday long. News that Gobert would not be there after the birth of his first child, and that total rises up once again to only stay under as Denver scores 80 points, 35 only in the opening half, the opposite of what we expected for that resilient effort out of the Nuggets, the reigning NBA champs. Minnesota, by the way, games 3 and 4 in Phoenix, a slight underdog in the Valley. They went outright in both. 4.5-point underdog. Game number 1 in the Mile High City. They went outright. A larger underdog yesterday because of that kitchen sink effect, expecting Denver to hold serve on its home floor. 6.5 points was the closing spread after Gobert was ruled out. And Minnesota wins outright. 4 consecutive games booked as an underdog. The Timberwolves win outright, led by Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns, each combined to score 54 points as each pour in 27. Anthony Edwards, DRS, is emerging as a superstar, if not already there. Of course, he scored 43 in game number 1. Back-to-back 40-point performances because he scored 40 in the closeout game, number 4 against Phoenix. The only player other than Kobe Bryant to be 22 years or younger and score 40-plus in back-to-back games in NBA playoff history, and he continues to lead the way for Minnesota.
You know, in the regular season, we always know that some of these younger guys need to step up, and we could call them superstars and also, hey, all-stars at this point. But how to cement your legacy as one of the game's better players? Do in the playoffs. Do it in series like the Phoenix Suns where you're like, okay, they might have better talent. You don't trust us. Watch us blow the doors off them and watch me have great performances. In series number 2, going up against the NBA champions who you got to beat them on their home court and win those first 2 games here. Ant-Man is now on the national stage. He's always been there, but now you're taking a look at some people that don't pay all that much attention to the NBA, settling in going, let me watch this. What is all the buzz about for Anthony Edwards? And he's been absolutely tremendous. And last night, you didn't even need his A game, but still, 11 of 17 for 27 points. You know, we're looking at that going like, that's an game. That is a tremendous playoff game for a young player here that we're now expecting just to routinely go into the 30s at that point. He has been great, but also, if we flip over the other side, right, and you take a look at the Denver Nuggets, we know you need Jamal Murray to step up in big moments. You're never going to win any basketball games, Ben, with Jamal Murray going 36 minutes, 3 of 18 from the floor, and also included Michael Porter Jr., 1 of 7 from three-point range. That's where you get those easy assists from Nikola Jokic, where he plays at the top of the key. You make your open jumpers. If we're going to get these type of performances moving forward, could we see the Minnesota Timberwolves with 8 playoff games and 8 straight victories against quality opponents? I'm not going to rule that out now. They look that good right now.
And as you look at the series numbers, that is the expected outcome. Minnesota in 4 is plus 100.
Wow.
Series total games market 4. That's a sweep over the reigning NBA champions. That is expected, the shortest price at even money. Do you want to take a moment, Donnie, to talk about Nikola Jokic, or you want to just forecast the rest of the series?
Yeah, we're going to forecast the rest of the series because it doesn't look good. Even yesterday I was saying, like, this game is still going 7 games, and I don't even know if he gets back to Denver now after last night's performance.
Yeah, DRS had that triple-double number for the Joker yesterday. He had 7 dimes in the opening half, finishing with 8. It was a porous offensive performance. Denver was greater than a $2 favorite, minus 205 on Saturday, entering game number 1. Last week at this point, the Nuggets were an odds-on favorite to win the Western Conference title. Now the Minnesota Timberwolves are an odds-on favorite at minus 115 to win the West. Might Dallas or Oklahoma City have something to say about that as their series starts tonight in OKC? But we go to game number 1 inside Madison Square Garden. A controversial final minute up next.
Are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks. Or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path. But quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
What a final minute it was in game number 1 inside Madison Square Garden between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers in the first game of this second round series. New York closed as a 5.5-point favorite. Total ended at 217.5. It goes well over as the Knicks win game number one, 121-117. But if you just look at the final score, it does not tell the story. In the final minute, DRS, Indiana led for most of the night inside MSG, up by as many as 9 midway through the third quarter. But by the time we reached the fourth, it was back and forth really for the entirety of it. We had a kickball on Aaron Naismith with just over 50 seconds left that in the 2-minute report, and I really cannot figure out why the NBA keeps releasing that thing. The refs went back and said it was the incorrect call, but it is not reviewable and thus could not be reversed. It gives the ball back to the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson and Donnie DiVincenzo take advantage. Tate hits a 3 to put New York up 118-115. And then late in the game, Indiana has a chance to maybe tie or take the lead. They call an illegal screen on Miles Turner with just over 12 ticks remaining, embellished to the nth degree by our guy Tate. Donnie DiVincenzo gives the ball back to New York. An off-ball foul is called on Andrew Nembhard. It's a technical free throw, and then some more free throws for the Knicks, allowing New York to outlast Indiana 121-117 in game number one. The Pacers do cover as a 5.5-point underdog. Again, total goes over 217.5. But the final score, DRS, does not represent what we saw in those final 60 seconds inside the Garden.
No, it doesn't. And also, when we talk about the last minute or 2 minutes, what's not reviewable? You can review a shot clock violation. You can review if the ball actually hit the rim, if a player stepped out of bounds, if there was a pass out of bounds, and who it went off of last. So it seems like one of those. It's not a type of call that you're going to sit back and say, well, it's my guesstimate here. It's my judgment. Let's just say you're taking a look at a charge where, okay, he was inside the cylinder, his feet were moving. Okay, that's not really a judgment call at this point, or it could be a judgment call, excuse me. That's not a judgment call whether or not you kick or the ball goes off your hand. It's pretty easy and visibly easy to see on an instant replay. So the fact that you can't review that is quite hilarious, and then you get it compounded by an even worse call on a moving screen that I guess you could call it, but it's one of those that you might call in the first quarter to set the tone for the game, like you're not putting up with it. Not like, oh, we're about to win this basketball game. Let me take it away from you and say that was a moving screen. That's the tough part about it. And also, if you're coming from a Pacers perspective, you got 46 points off the bench from your team. The New York Knicks got 3 points off the bench from their team, and you still lost that game. A lot of things went right for the Indiana Pacers, particularly with their play through the first 3 quarters. And to lose that game at the end, we had a lead for most of the game on some tough calls. That's a double down here. That's a big momentum swing for the Pacers going up 1-0 and saying, all right, let's put our foot now in the necks of the New York Knicks. And now you're saying you're already going into survival mode for a game you probably should have won, Ben.
So I don't actually like the idea that timing should affect a call. Call the game the same way. I think one of the reasons that we look at timing and it amplifies what the ref is seeing is because the focus with 12 seconds left as Indiana is trying to tie the game is very much on that aspect of using the screen to set up the offensive possession. But whether it's in the first 12 seconds of the game or the last 12 seconds, it was the incorrect call and an absolute embellishment and, frankly, a flop out of Donnie DiVincenzo. But it goes the way of the New York Knicks. I really do not understand the last 2-minute report by the NBA. I understand honesty and transparency, but if you can't change the outcome, you only further infuriate both sides in what is a poorly officiated game in the most crucial moments of a playoff game. The opening game in a second-round series between Indiana and New York. And all of that, DRS, the final 60 seconds overshadows another brilliant performance out of Jalen Brunson. His 4th consecutive game scoring 40. He goes off for 43 in game number 1 against Indiana.
Yeah, he was fantastic once again last night, and that's what they needed. But also, getting back to the point of, letting the players decide these games, we understand what that means. If it's a close call, ticky-tack foul, let them play through it. We don't want to see games like, the Philadelphia Eagles with a tug on the jersey of an uncatchable football. Yep. And also, if a defensive end clearly beats an offensive tackle in a big moment in the game, he gets tackled before he gets to the quarterback, we all understand you have to call that. When you look at plays that go, that's a bad call in that moment, everybody knows it was, and the referee shouldn't be making those type of calls here.
Completely agree. We'll look at what the rest of this series has in store and how it impacts the odds race up next.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks. Or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number one seed, you should have an easy path. But quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
We continue to react to the opening game of round number 2 in the Eastern Conference playoffs between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. Inside the world's most famous arena, Jalen Brunson puts up yet another performance that matches the atmosphere. Only it was overshadowed by a controversial final minute. 43 points, though, out of Jalen Brunson. 26 field goal attempts for the 7th consecutive game in the playoffs. That's all 7. If he is going to continue, DRS, to take 26 field goals a game, although his points prop is on the rise, 35.5 actually became 36 in a hook late last night. He's going to go over. The volume is there. He also gets to the free throw line double-digit times per game on average. A perfect 14 of 14 last night from the charity stripe. That's his 4th consecutive game of 40-plus points. The Knicks so far in this playoff run at Madison Square Garden, 3-1 straight up. Now just 1-3 against the spread, but they do win game number 1 at home to take a 1-0 series lead.
And by the way, Brunson, with all these offensive outbursts, Ben, he's not even using the three-point line. Like, we're not surprised when we see a guy like Steph Curry go for 45 points because he knocked down 12 triples out here. He made 1 3-point shot and finished with 43 points. That's like a big man who never leaves the low block. Like, oh, he's just dominant down here. This is a guard, which typically you can steal extra points from the three-point line. It's not even mattering. And we even broke this game down yesterday saying, like, I understand Brunson's going to shoot 25 plus times in a game, but sooner or later, you can't just hang numbers at 35.5 in a playoff game and say, well, he can have a great game, 31 points, 16 assists, and they can still win. But man, he's got to get to close to 40 points, and he seemingly does it every night. It's one of those things that I'm going to go back on and look when the NBA playoffs are over. Let's just say the New York Knicks run is over and say, look at all the money you could have made on Jalen Brunson if you watch the early line and they kept telling you the guy's going to shoot like 30 times a night and the points don't matter.
Yeah.
Yet I don't bet the points because I look at the points number at 35.5 and be like, boy, that's crazy. And then he scores 40. Like, yeah, well, that's what he was supposed to do. And not even bet it at that point. So it's one of those anomalies that's playing out right in front of my eyes, which we'll see it again in game number 2 with a 35.5.
No
like,
doubt.
Ben, tonight's the night he's going to shoot 29 times and not be efficient. Then he goes for 45 again.
Listen, sometimes you can acknowledge the number is correct, but decide not to bet it because it's the premium in the market. But maybe it's not the premium yet on Jalen Brunson. All 5 starters for New York score in double digits. The Villanova New York Knicks combined for 92 of 121. Dante DiVincenzo has found his stroke once again. 5 of 9 from deep, 25 points. And I continue to say Josh Hart was built in a lab for basketball players made to play for Tom Thibodeau. All 48 minutes last night, 9 of 13 from the floor, 24 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists. A huge night for all 3 of the former Wildcats, now leading the New York Knicks to a 1-0 series lead. New York entered this playoff series as nearly a $3 favorite to win the series outright, now minus 420. The expected outcome is New York in 5 games, the series total games market at plus 185. We get to game number 2 tomorrow night inside MSG, where the Knicks are a 5-point favorite. How do you see this series playing out, DRS, between Indiana and New York, knowing that game number 1 was highly competitive all 4 quarters, all 48 minutes?
Yeah, it might go the same way the Philadelphia 76ers series went because the Sixers felt like they got robbed in one of those games in Madison Square Garden to start the series off. So they went down 0-2 heading back home before a big performance in game number 3. But once you get down 0-2, you have to realize it's no longer a 7-game series. It's a 5-game series, and you got to win 4 of those games against a quality team. And they're going to have some of those games in their own building, which makes it tough. So you look at the Pacers series and say it's not as dire as what we're going to talk about here from the Denver Nuggets because they have their 2 home games. But you can't go down 0-2. Yeah. The series is a wrap. Even though I thought the Sixers would be able to hang around, it was a competitive, great series that they played, which they lost in 6 games to the Knicks. But it was apparent that we were talking after game number 2. I don't know what the Sixers are going to do, but they're not going to win this series because, again, you got to win 4 out of 5 games. You got to go 4-1 against a really good team, and that's usually not going to happen in most scenarios. So if I look at the Indiana Pacers, they have to win game number 2. If they don't, I see it ending probably in 6 games here where the Knicks can wrap it up on the Pacers' home court because maybe they get a split, win game 5, you're at game 6, and then all the pressure's on the home team. They have to win that game, and maybe the Knicks show up just like they did against the Philadelphia 76ers. So that plus 230 for 6 games right now for the Knicks feels great, specifically if the Knicks win game number 2.
Game 2 will be the 3rd time the Pacers have been an underdog in this playoff run. Game 2 against Milwaukee, a short underdog. They win outright. Last night in the opening game, they cover as a 5.5-point dog, now a 5-point dog in game number 2. For the New York Knicks, 6 of their 7 playoff games have been decided by 7 points or less. All 7 decided by 11 points or fewer. All that is happening around the NBA is still kind of setting up from the odds makers' perspective for a perfect playoff run for the Boston Celtics, who are now an even money favorite before their first game of their second round series tonight inside TD Garden against the Cavaliers as an even money favorite to win the NBA championship at plus 100. Last week at this point, DRS, it was the expected outcome. Boston out of the East and a team out of the Western Conference well in front of everybody else. It was the Denver Nuggets at that point last week. Now it's the Minnesota Timberwolves as the T-Wolves have a 2-0 series lead, winning both games at altitude in Denver. Minnesota plus 290. What do you make of the drastic change in the NBA title odds?
It probably should be this way because you're taking a look at the Celtics who were minus money, and now you're saying, like, whoa, the Timberwolves might be one of those wagons that we didn't anticipate would be ready to do this, because sometimes you're watching what you see. A clean sweep round number 1 against Phoenix. I expected them to win, but again, the betting public technically did not, including the FanDuel Sportsbook. Now you say, okay, they're going to get their comeuppance now. You got to go on the road and take on the Nuggets. The Nuggets look absolutely tremendous here, and you're hammering that team that won the NBA championship last year, and that's why you're seeing that number come low. Now, I continue to say to myself, if you lose the first 2 games of a series, you're not going to win the series. But sometimes you get different feels from different teams. Like the Philadelphia 76ers are built on, yeah, we're a good regular season team, and we usually win round number 1, but when it comes to round number 2, we just can't get over the hump. The Denver Nuggets last year had an unbelievable playoff run, including cutting down the Nets and winning the championship. So is there a different pedigree for the Nuggets? And the reason I bring this up, Ben, is we're staring at a 15-1 price for the Denver Nuggets to win the championship. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but are we also saying at the same time they're dead in the water against the Minnesota Timberwolves, so why waste your money at 15-1? They win game number 3, which, again, this is a really good team. And if Jamal Murray is anything other than a 3-for-18 guy, they're going to be back into this series. I still don't think they can win because they lost their first 2 games at home, and Minnesota's really good. But that 15-1 is so crazy to look at for the Denver Nuggets when all season long we're looking at a plus 250, plus 225 number.
Jamal Murray nearly had as many things thrown at the refs from the bench, a couple of towels too, than he made field goals last night in game number 2, 3. It also cracks me up the Nuggets, who are down 0-2, losing both games on their own home floor, have a much shorter price at 15-1 than the Cavs, who have even played a game in the second round at 110-1. Again, it speaks to the Celtics, minus 300. DRS, let's go to the Western Conference, though. There are the Eastern Conference odds. We'll have plenty of time to discuss those. Let's go to the Western Conference. Minus 115 for Minnesota. Denver now has the longest price at 7-1. Do these numbers make sense to you? And as you have said, and I think it bears repeating, Oklahoma City is the number 1 seed that would have home floor advantage in a Western Conference Finals.
You're going to get some changing of these numbers on a day-to-day basis, Ben, and we understand that because some teams are going to play, some teams are going to have the day off, and it's what we see lately. The Minnesota Timberwolves certainly look like they're kings of the hill. I have no problem with them being a minus 115 price, but am I going to bet that minus 115 price? Probably not. OKC at plus 280 is probably where you should be pointing the finger right now, and also keep in mind, they're going to win tonight against the Dallas Mavericks. That line is going to get shorter, and you're going to start to get some more respect back on OKC as the number 1 overall seed in the Western Conference.
Plenty more playoff talk around the association later in the show. Now the Daily Diamond Dash in MLB up next.
Are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks. Or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path. But quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Around Major League Baseball from a 10-game slate on a Monday. Not a full slate, but still rather robust. We start late night in Los Angeles for the first time in nearly 2 calendar years. Since June 2022, Walker Buehler returns to the bump for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, a little bit of rust to be expected for Buehler. He gives up 3 earned runs in the opening 2 frames. But his Dodgers had his back with the bats. Shohei Ohtani, once again, his 4th long ball in the last 3 games, now leads all of MLB with 11. LA answered right away in the home half of the first. It was followed by a Frederick Freeman home run. They go back-to-back, and a couple of other homers from the Dodgers later in those innings, but not much later, DRS, because all 9 runs in this baseball game scored in the first 3 innings as LA wins in Buehler's return 6-3 over the Miami Marlins. LA closed as a minus 330 money line favorite. They make good on that number.
Yeah, and yesterday did have some RBI props in this game. Shohei Ohtani, which hit his right away in the first inning with that home run. Also was looking for a Max Muncy chance to get an RBI. Didn't get it, but that's the beauty of taking plus money wagers on RBI. Go 1-1, you're going to come away with a little bit of extra scratch. But yesterday we broke this game down on money line, and Kevin asked me a question. He goes, you know what? Walker Buehler is coming back after such an extended period of time of being away from baseball, and let's just say being a $3 favorite. Why don't you just take like 2.5 runs with the Marlins to see what happens? And quite frankly, he was right early on because you got 3 runs off of Walker Buehler within the first 2 innings. But my counterpoint before that game started, as we were talking in the afternoon, was why don't you just take the over in this game, which was 8.5? Because the one thing that you do know is Walker Buehler can have an average start, which quite frankly was quite average last night. But you know their bats are going to bail you out against a pitcher that we don't trust in Munoz. And you saw that right away. 6 earned runs off Munoz here after the 3rd inning. That total was already put in the bank. So a couple different ways to bet, where if you would have said, hey, give me 2.5 runs, I'm going to score 3 times in the first 2 innings, you might win that game outright if you're the Marlins. But those Dodger bats are always going to rescue average pitching performances on a night-to-night basis because of how good they are, and they did it again last night. You don't talk about bad vibes like, oh, no, we're down 2-0 before we even get to the plate, and by the end of the first inning, you have the lead again, and then also you lose that lead, and then you gain it right back in the bottom of the 2nd inning. That is a pitcher's best friend to say, hey, kid, man, it's a brand new ball game every inning. We'll keep putting you back in the lead. Do your thing here, and the Dodgers end up winning.
James Outman, a 2-run bomb in the 2nd, puts the Dodgers up 5-3. Teoscar Hernandez adds on in the 3rd with a solo shot, 6-3. When you think about Walker Buehler, yes, yesterday in his first start in nearly 2 years wasn't sensational, but when he got injured in June of 2022, he was really the ace of the staff in Los Angeles. Huge to have him back for a team in L.A. that is already playing some really good ball. The Dodgers have now won 5 games in a row, 11 games above 500, 24-13. Again, the return of Walker Buehler is huge for Los Angeles. But DRS, we got to talk Shohei Ohtani. Major League Baseball best, 11 home runs. 4 homers in the last 3 games for L.A. Mookie Betts went 2 of 4 yesterday and still has a .356 batting average. Shohei Ohtani is 14 points better than that with a .370 average, and yet Mookie Betts still remains the very short favorite in comparison to everybody else to a National League MVP. You said it. I agree. I feel like Ohtani should be right there lockstep with his LA teammate.
You're right. And quite frankly, I was actually surprised to go back because it's something you might check in like on a week-to-week basis or every 2 weeks because those numbers do fluctuate. But I wanted to make sure I checked before the show started because of how good Ohtani's been and the numbers that he has, particularly to the rest of Major League Baseball. And I quite frankly was logging onto the FanDuel Sportsbook and telling myself, I'm not going to be surprised if Ohtani's the favorite here. But not only to be not a favorite, but not technically even in the race based on the numbers right now in the FanDuel Sportsbook, which is kind of wild. You also have to remind yourself, both of these players are sensational. They play on the same team. But if you're looking at Mookie Betts in the leadoff hole, he's going to see a lot more pitches than Shohei Ohtani. You say, well, why doesn't that make sense, Donnie? You can't pitch around Mookie Betts because he's a great hitter only to get to Ohtani. You have to go after Mookie Betts to make sure you get him out so nobody's on base for the 2-run home run that's about to happen for Ohtani. So Betts is in an unbelievable position of probably getting the best pitching on the team where you can't afford to put him on base because Ohtani is in that 2 spot. And then Ohtani's still with a 370 average in a new league, not in a new city, but with a new team with massive expectations of a $700 million contract and also gambling implications where we wouldn't have had any problem if Ohtani was hitting 220 because he's worried about what's going on off the field. Nothing affects this guy right now. He's been amazing. And quite frankly, he should at least be neck and neck with Mookie Betts in the price point here at FanDuel for MVP.
$3 separate the two Dodgers teammates.
Crazy.
Mookie Betts is the favorite at plus 150. Ohtani back by $3 at plus 450. Nobody's price outside of those two shorter than 13-1 at this moment. But might the Phillies have something to say because the Phils have the most wins in all of Major League Baseball. Make it 25. They've won 10 straight at home at Citizens Bank Ballpark in Philadelphia. They've won 6 straight overall. They pull off a 4-game weekend sweep over the San Francisco Giants that extended into Monday. Another gem from Zach Wheeler on the bump. The Phils close as greater than a $2 favorite. And the Philadelphia Phillies win 6-1 over the Giants yesterday.
It's tremendous, man. Like the Phillies have the best pitching staff, starting staff in Major League Baseball and getting some timely hitting at the same time. You're supposed to win your home games, but you like to win series 2 out of 3 games and maybe 3 out of 4 will be an impressive series, but you're not supposed to beat teams 4-0 here, particularly when the other team is a decent ball club. 15-21 on the season. Why? Because the Phillies just beat them 4 straight games. If San Francisco beat the Phillies 4 straight games, hey, look at that. Giants are a really good baseball team, well over 500 at this point. So I also like to counter punch on this. The Phillies haven't played anybody yet. I always say this. They're 25-11. The reason why everybody's under 500 is because the Phillies keep steamrolling those baseball teams early in the season. If the Phillies were 0-36, what would you say, Ben? What do you want the Phillies to do? They played the hardest records in baseball because look how good those teams. No, because they beat the Phillies. Vice versa, it doesn't make any sense. They'll play the Dodgers, they'll play the Braves, but you can't just measure it on playing the single best team in baseball every single day. Phillies are good, and they're getting the pitching now. It's a lot of fun to watch here in Philly.
Zach Wheeler against the Atlanta Braves in the season debut went scoreless against Atlanta. Then he lost his next 3 starts, giving up 8 earned runs in total in those 3. Since that point, he has won his most recent 4 starts, allowing 1 earned run in total. Wheeler is dealing. Elsewhere around MLB now.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
The only one that can punch him in the nose, in my opinion, is the Knicks. Or those Western teams. What did you think when you saw those odds?
In their path, and it's all about the path, right? Number 1 seed, you should have an easy path. But quite honestly, looking at who they'd have to go through here eventually is kind of laughable. So I get it.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
An aces affair inside the friendly confines in Wrigley Field, and the starters were great yesterday in a game between the Padres and the Cubs. You might look at the final score. San Diego wins on the road as a very slight underdog, 6-3 in the Windy City, but the runs did not start until the sixth inning. Jurickson Profar, by the way, sensational this year for the Padres, a two-run RBI single to start the scoring in the top of the sixth. That's how San Diego took the lead. But the aces yesterday, Yu Darvish, 5 innings of shutout work. Justin Steele making his first start since late March, back for the Cubbies, 4 2/3. Also shut out baseball. DRS, here's a stat from our good friend on the show, Tyler Aki, who works in Chicago for ESPN Radio Chicago. Starters in the month of May so far for the Cubbies, 34 2/3 innings. They've allowed only 2 earned with a .51 ERA. The bullpen, 20 1/3, 17 earned runs, a 7.52 ERA. That was the story yesterday as the Padres get to the Cubbies bullpen and win 6-3.
Yeah, they've been having some really good starting pitching as well, and quite frankly, that sort of lays it out there with the statistics that you're bringing up. But if we're talking about, what we've seen out of the betting landscape over the first month and a half for that Padres lineup, you really got to be dialed in right to the middle here. Now, Profar was hitting a lot higher in the lineup before they got Louis Arise, which is fine. He's a great leadoff hitter. Wouldn't known yesterday, 0 for 4, which lowers his average to 303. But Tatis, Cronenworth, Profar, and Bogarts have been awesome all throughout that lineup. And I've cashed a lot of tickets with Cronenworth. Now, yesterday, he doesn't actually get an RBI, but still goes 2 for 4. But then Profar, 1 hit, 2 RBIs in that game. It seems like you can't go wrong if you're betting at least 1 or 2 of those guys at a plus 150 to plus 170 number, which are on a day-to-day basis. Like, you take a look, that's a great lineup. Arise and Tatis before Cronenworth, and routinely, even at the FanDuel Sportsbook, you're getting plus 150s or higher for an RBI chance with Cronenworth. And as we know, Ben, it's not so much about, how great a hitter are you. It's the opportunities that you get. If guys are continuously on base for RBI chances, eventually you're going to break through at those plus money numbers. I like this Padres lineup a lot. They're only 19-19 on the season, but I do think over the parts of the summer where you're getting good weather in all parts of the country, this is a lineup you can have a lot of fun with here. And also yesterday, keep in mind, Manny Machado has been really good. He wasn't even in the lineup yesterday and still picked up 6 runs and got that W.
DRS, it should have been a big day for the Kansas City Royals lineup, and specifically for us. KC uses a 3-run 7th inning to rally against the Brewers. The Royals win 3-2. Your guy, Michael Massey, a solo shot to get things started, and then Garcia, 2-run RBI single that plated the winning runs for KC. But Vinny P., our guy, Vinny Pasquantino, not his day yesterday. Bottom of the 6th, runners on first and second, no out, grounds into a double play. Bottom of the 7th, 1 out, bases juiced, inning-ending double play off the bat of Vinny P. We needed an RBI or 2+ total bases. He had his shots, didn't come through.
No, it didn't come through here, and that's a shame of it all, because if you would rewind to before the game, I go, Ben, I know for a fact that Vinny P is going to have a bases loaded 1-out opportunity. You would take that every single time. And he's been really good to me this year with RBI chances. Just didn't work out. And also, he's only hitting 222, but that's the great part about RBI chances. So if you come up with runners on second and third and hit a 300-foot fly ball, you don't even get a base hit, but you get the RBI for plus money at this point. That's why there's such great wagers to have. But again, just didn't work out last night when we expected to have a nice cash there with bases loaded. Didn't work out for us.
Vinny P, man. Vinny Pasquantino. We'll go back to the well. He was 0 for yesterday, but we still believe in you here on the early line. A couple of scores featuring AL Central teams. The divisional duel in Cleveland yesterday. The Tigers and the Guardians exchange runs in the first inning. Detroit scores 1 in the top. Cleveland answers with 1 in the bottom. And then a Jose Ramirez solo shot in the home half of the sixth. That was the difference. Cleveland wins 2-1. Also in Minnesota, after having their 12-game win streak snapped by the Red Sox on Sunday, the Twins start a new one. They've won 13 of their previous 14 games with a victory over the Mariners. Luis Castillo wasn't bad yesterday, but DRS, he has started 8 games this year for Seattle. He's earned a decision in all 8. Yesterday, a loss.
Yeah, and by the way, I had 11 total RBI props, won 4, lost 7, but a lot of those were 2-to-1 prices, so basically broke even. Thought I was going to have a big night. Like the first batter I had was Riley Green, hit a solo home run in the first at bat of the game for the Tigers. They only scored 1 run, and I didn't win any money overall in the night. I thought it was a good sign, but apparently it wasn't.
We'll get back to the association, some playoff conversations up next.